Doppler radar. Radar, which stands for radio detection and ranging, uses the pulse echo system to locate objects such as aircraft or even storm clouds. A radio wave is emitted, and if some is reflected, it can return to be detected. The time taken to return and the speed of the radio wave allow the distance to the object to be calculated. This is covered in more detail on the video called Pulse Echo. Here we have three wave fronts which will travel to the right towards this stationary barrier and be reflected, something like this. I did the incoming waves in blue and the outgoing waves in black, just so we could distinguish between the two. You'll see that the wavelength of the waves coming out is basically the same as the wavelength of the waves that went in. Here again we have three wavefronts moving right to meet this reflector. But now the reflector is itself moving towards the right. So, after the first wavefront has hit the reflector, there will be further to travel before the second wavefront hits the reflector, and likewise further to travel before the third wavefront hits the reflector. So, the reflected waves would look something like this, with an increased wavelength. So we find the wavelength is increased and therefore the frequency reduced if the reflector is moving away from the source. Here again we have the three wavefronts travelling to the right, but now the reflector is moving to the left. So now, after the first wavefront has hit the reflector, there will be a reduced distance to travel for the second wavefront. So the reflected waves might look something like this, with a reduced wavelength. So we see that the wavelength is reduced and therefore the frequency increased if the reflector is moving towards the source. The amount of change allows the speed of the object relative to the source to be calculated. This technique is used by speed cameras. It allows air traffic controllers to know the speed of aircraft and can even measure the speed of blood flow when used with ultrasound instead of radio waves. The Doppler effect video covers the effect on sounds of being emitted from a moving source.